The Empire's arrogance. What happens when a galaxy-spanning empire meets the one species they should have left alone? Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of the Imperial dreadnought Eternal Dominion. His forearms crossed as he stared at the small blue planet floating in the void. To him it looked pathetic. Weak, defenseless. "This is Earth?" he asked, his voice dripping with disgust. "This tiny rock is what our scouts have been so worried about." His second-in-command, a nervous creature called Pilot Shin, shuffled his feet. "Sir, the reports say the humans are different. They fight in ways we don't understand." Zethkar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. "Every species thinks they're special, Pilot. Every world believes they're the chosen ones. But look at our fleet." He gestured toward the massive viewscreen showing thousands of warships stretching into the darkness. The Galactic Empire had conquered over 10,000 worlds. They had crushed civilizations that had existed for millions of years. They had turned entire star systems into ash. "Sir," came a voice from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from the planet." "Put it through," Zethkar commanded, expecting the usual begging and pleading that came from doomed worlds. Instead, a calm human voice filled the bridge. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the Terran Defense Force. You have entered our territory without permission. You have exactly 60 seconds to turn around and leave." The alien crew burst into laughter. Even Zethkar couldn't help but smile. "Did this primitive just give us an ultimatum?" "Shall I respond, sir?" asked the communications officer. "Yes. Tell them who we are." The communications officer activated the channel. "Human vessel, you are addressing the 47th Fleet of the Galactic Empire. We have conquered worlds before your species learned to make fire. Surrender now, and your death will be quick." The response came immediately. 50 seconds. Zethkar's amusement turned to anger. "How dare these insects show such disrespect? Navigation, take us into orbit. Weapons, prepare to glass their major cities. We'll teach them what happens when you threaten the Empire." "Sir," Pilot Shin said quietly, "maybe we should—" 40 seconds, came the human voice again. "Shut up." Zethkar roared at his pilot. "Communications, open a channel to the entire human planet. I want every one of these pathetic creatures to hear this." The channel opened, and Zethkar began his standard conquest speech. "People of Earth, I am Commander Zethkar of the Imperial 47th Fleet. Your world now belongs to the Galactic Empire. You will surrender unconditionally, or we will turn your planet into a wasteland. You have no choice in this matter. Resistance is impossible. Your technology is primitive. Your weapons are toys. Your 20 seconds. The interruption made Zethkar's blood boil. "Do you not understand what I'm telling you? We have 10,000 ships. We have weapons that can crack your planet in half." 10 seconds. "Sir," whispered Pilot Shin, "the humans haven't moved a single ship to intercept us. They haven't fired a single shot. What if what? Zethkar snarled. "What if these primitives have some secret weapon?" "Impossible. Our intelligence reports show they barely have faster than light travel. They can't even leave their own solar system." 5 seconds. "Enough of this," Zethkar commanded. "All ships prepare to—" "Time's up." The human transmission cut out. For a moment, the bridge was silent. Then Zethkar began laughing again. "Did they think their countdown would frighten us? These humans are even more pathetic than I thought. Begin the bombardment." But before the weapons officer could respond, something impossible happened. The space around Earth changed. It started as a shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot metal. Then the shimmer became visible distortions. Then the distortions became something that made several of the alien crew members physically sick, just to look at. "What is that?" Zethkar demanded. The sensors officer was frantically working at his station. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures all around the planet. It's like space itself is being folded." "Folded? That's impossible." "Sir," came another voice, this one from the navigation station, "we have a problem. Our engines aren't responding." "What do you mean they're not responding?" "I mean we can't move, sir. It's like something is holding us in place." Zethkar felt his first moment of doubt, but he pushed it down. The Empire had faced strange alien technologies before. They always found a way to overcome them. "All ships, full power to engines. Break us free from whatever this is." Across the fleet, 10,000 warships fired their engines simultaneously. The combined thrust should have been enough to push a moon out of orbit. But the Imperial fleet didn't move even a millimeter. Sir, the sensors officer's voice was rising in panic. The energy readings are increasing exponentially. Whatever the humans are doing, it's getting stronger. That's when Admiral Chen's voice returned. But now it was broadcasting to every ship in the Imperial fleet. Attention Imperial forces. This is your final warning. You have trespassed into Terran territory. You have threatened our world. You have refused our generous offer to leave peacefully. Generous? Zethkar roared. We're the Galactic Empire. We don't negotiate with primitives. But Admiral Chen continued as if she hadn't heard him. Therefore, in accordance with the Terran defense protocols established after the last time someone made the mistake of threatening Earth, you will now experience the consequences of your actions. The last time, Pilot Shin whispered, Sir, what if we're not the first ones to try this? Before Zethkar could answer, the space around Earth exploded into light. You thought you knew what humans were capable of. You haven't seen anything yet. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the war room deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Around her, dozens of technicians monitored systems that most of the galaxy didn't even know were possible. Ma'am, reported Lieutenant Kim from the sensor station. All Imperial ships are now locked in the containment field. They can't move, can't jump to hyperspace, and can't even rotate their ships. Good, Chen replied. Open a channel to their commander. On the main screen, the face of Commander Zethkar appeared. His 4 eyes were wide with a mixture of rage and growing fear. What have you done to us? I've activated our defense systems, Chen answered calmly. Systems we hoped never to use again. Impossible. Our intelligence reports, your intelligence reports are exactly what we wanted you to see, Chen interrupted. Tell me, Commander. In all your research about humanity, did you ever wonder why a species that only achieved spaceflight 200 years ago was left alone by every other galactic power? Zethkar's mandibles clicked nervously. You're lying. No one has ever successfully invaded Earth because you're so primitive that you're not worth conquering. Chen smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. Is that what they told you? Let me guess. Your empire has a policy about primitive worlds. You ignore them until they become a threat. Then you crush them before they can develop dangerous technology. How did you? Because you're not the first, Commander. You're not even the 10th. Chen gestured to a wall display that lit up with symbols. The Vorthon Collective tried to invade us 50 years ago. The crystalline hegemony attempted it 30 years ago. The Void Hunters made their attempt just 15 years ago. What happened to them? Zethkar asked, though his voice suggested he already feared the answer. They learned the same lesson you're about to learn. Humans don't fight like other species. We don't follow your rules. We don't play by your expectations. Chen's voice grew harder. And we really, really don't like being threatened. Down in the tactical center, Lieutenant Kim was monitoring the Imperial fleet's increasingly desperate attempts to escape. Ma'am, they're trying to overload their reactors to break free from the containment field. Let them try, Chen replied. Their energy will just make our systems stronger. Back on the Eternal Dominion, panic was spreading through the crew. Sir, the engineering officer called out. We're pouring everything we have into the engines, but we're not moving at all. If anything, the field holding us seems to be getting stronger. That's because it is, came Admiral Chen's voice over the comm. Your reactor energy is being absorbed and converted to strengthen our containment system. The harder you struggle, the more trapped you become. Zethkar's training told him this was impossible. Energy didn't work that way. Physics didn't work that way. You're bluffing. This is some kind of trick. Would you like a demonstration of what we're really capable of? Chen asked. Without waiting for an answer, she nodded to her weapons officer. Target their escort destroyer on the outer edge of their formation. Minimum power. Minimum power, the officer responded. On the Imperial flagship, the sensors officer suddenly screamed, Sir! Massive energy spike coming from the planet. A beam of silver light, no thicker than a pencil, reached out from Earth and touched one of the smaller Imperial ships. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the destroyer simply wasn't there anymore. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not blown apart. It was just gone, as if it had never existed. The bridge of the Eternal Dominion fell into complete silence. 10,000 Imperial crew members had just been erased from existence in less than a second. How? Zethkar whispered. We learned some things during our first contact with aggressive aliens, Chen explained. Things about the nature of reality itself. Things about what's possible when you really put your mind to it. Your predecessor species were excellent teachers. Our predecessors? The Devourers. Nasty bunch. They showed up about 80 years ago with ships the size of moons, weapons that could ignite stars, and an appetite for consuming entire civilizations. They were absolutely convinced that nothing in the galaxy could stand against them. Chen paused, letting that sink in. They were wrong. Pilot Shin was frantically checking historical records. Sir, he whispered, there are no records of any species called the Devourers. No archives, no archaeological evidence, no references in any galactic database. That's because we erased them, Chen continued, as if she had heard him. Not just their ships, not just their worlds, but every trace they had ever existed. We removed them from reality itself. The only reason I remember them is because I was there when we did it. Zethkar felt something he hadn't experienced in his 200 years of conquest. Genuine terror. You're lying. That's impossible. You can't just erase an entire species from existence. Can't we? Chen's smile grew colder. Tell me, Commander, what do you think happened to your destroyer? The Imperial commander looked at his tactical display. Where there had been a ship with 10,000 crew members, there was now just empty space. Not even debris. It was as if the ship had never been built. Check your databases, Chen suggested. Look up the construction records for that vessel. The records officer worked frantically at his station. After a few minutes, he looked up with confusion. Sir, there are no construction records for that ship. According to our databases, it was never built. But I know it was here. I saw it on sensors just moments ago. Reality is more flexible than most species realize, Chen explained. When you understand the underlying structure of existence itself, you can make adjustments. We found it's the most effective way to deal with aggressive neighbors. Sir, the communications officer called out, we're receiving messages from the other fleets in our empire. They're asking about our status, but they don't seem to remember that we had an extra destroyer in our formation. Zethkar's forehands were shaking now. What do you want from us? I want you to listen very carefully to what I'm about to tell you, Chen replied. And I want you to remember every word, because you're going to carry this message back to your empire. She stood up, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of absolute authority. Earth is off limits. The Sol system is off limits. Any ship that enters our territory without permission will be removed from existence. Any species that threatens humanity will be erased from reality itself. This is not a negotiation. This is not a threat. This is a fact. But if you can do all this, Zethkar asked desperately, why haven't you conquered the galaxy yourselves? Chen's expression softened slightly. Because we don't want to. We're not interested in ruling other worlds or imposing our will on other species. We just want to be left alone. But when someone threatens us, when someone tries to hurt humanity... Her voice grew hard again. Well, then they discover why every other species in the galaxy gives us a very wide berth. You're releasing us? Zethkar couldn't believe what he was hearing. I'm sending you home with a message, Chen corrected. But first you need to understand exactly what you're dealing with. She nodded to her tactical officer again. Show them the records. The main screen filled with images that made the Imperial crew recoil in horror. Massive alien ships being reduced to quantum foam. Entire fleets simply blinking out of existence. Species being erased so completely that the universe itself forgot they had ever lived. These are the 17 different galactic powers that have tried to invade Earth, Chen explained. Some came with fleets larger than yours. Some had technology that made yours look like stone axes. Some were so advanced that they could manipulate time itself. The images kept coming, each one more terrifying than the last. None of them exist anymore, Chen concluded. The galaxy is a much more peaceful place now that they're gone. How long? Zethkar asked weakly. How long have you been able to do this? Since the first time someone made the mistake of threatening humanity, Chen replied. We're quick learners, Commander, and we have very long memories. End of Act 2. But this is just the beginning. What will happen when the Imperial fleet returns home with this impossible news? How do you tell a galaxy-spanning empire that they just encountered their worst nightmare? Emperor Vaxthul the Eternal sat on his crystal throne in the heart of the Imperial capital, listening to Commander Zethkar's report with growing disbelief. Around them, the highest-ranking officials of the Galactic Empire stood in stunned silence. Let me understand this correctly, the Emperor said slowly, his voice echoing through the massive throne room. You're telling me that a single primitive planet not only stopped our entire 47th fleet, but also erased one of our destroyers from existence itself? Zethkar knelt before the throne, still shaking from his encounter with humanity. Yes, Your Majesty. The humans have technology we don't understand. They can manipulate reality itself. Impossible, shouted General Krextar, the Empire's military commander. We've conquered 10,000 worlds. Our technology is superior to every species in the galaxy. That's what I thought too, Zethkar replied. But they showed me records. 17 different galactic powers have tried to invade Earth. None of them exist anymore. They've been erased so completely that there's no trace they ever lived. The Emperor leaned forward, his 6 eyes narrowing. You're saying they can delete entire species from reality? I saw it happen, Your Majesty. One moment our destroyer was there with 10,000 crew members. The next moment it was gone. Not destroyed, gone. Our own databases show no record that the ship was ever built. High Counselor Nexara, the Empire's chief advisor, stepped forward. Your Majesty, this could be some kind of psychological warfare. Perhaps they used advanced illusions to make our forces think. No. The voice came from the back of the throne room, causing everyone to turn in surprise. An ancient figure emerged from the shadows. Prophet Mordan, the oldest living member of the Empire, keeper of the galaxy's deepest secrets. Prophet, the Emperor said respectfully, you have something to add? The ancient being's voice was like rustling leaves. I remember the stories my ancestors told. Stories we thought were myths. Tales of a species that could reach into the very fabric of existence and make changes. What stories? Zethkar asked. The Devourers, Mordan whispered, and several officials gasped. They were the most powerful species that ever existed. They consumed entire civilizations, turned stars into weapons, and ruled over a third of the galaxy. Then one day, they simply weren't there anymore. The humans mentioned them, Zethkar said. They said they erased the Devourers from existence. Mordan nodded slowly. The old stories say the Devourers found a small blue world inhabited by strange bipedal creatures. They thought it would be easy prey. The stories say that within a single day, the entire Devourer civilization was gone, as if they had never existed. But those are just legends, General Krextar protested. Myths and fairy tales. Are they? Mordan asked. Tell me, General, in all your military studies, have you ever found any archaeological evidence of the Devourers? Any ruins, any artifacts, any traces at all? The General's face went pale. No, but because they were erased from reality itself, the Prophet continued. And the humans have been waiting ever since for the next species foolish enough to threaten them. Emperor Vaxthul stood up, his massive form towering over the assembled officials. If this is true, then we face a problem unlike any in our empire's history. We cannot conquer a species that can simply delete us from existence. Your Majesty, said High Counselor Nexara, surely there must be some way to defeat them. No species is truly invincible. The humans offered us a choice, Zethkar said quietly. Stay away from their territory and they'll leave us alone. But if we threaten them again, we don't negotiate with primitives. General Krextar roared. The Empire does not bow to anyone. Then the Empire will cease to exist, Prophet Mordan said calmly. Just like all the others who thought they were too powerful to face consequences. The throne room fell silent. Finally, the Emperor spoke. What exactly did these humans say to you? Zethkar straightened. Admiral Chen said that Earth and the Sol system are off limits. Any ship that enters their territory without permission will be removed from existence. Any species that threatens humanity will be erased from reality itself. She said this is not a negotiation or a threat, but a fact. And you believe her? The Emperor asked. Your Majesty, I watched them erase our destroyer. I felt their technology hold our entire fleet motionless in space. I have no doubt they can do everything they claim. General Krextar stepped forward. Your Majesty, I request permission to assemble the first Imperial Armada. 1 million ships with our most advanced weapons. Surely even these humans can't stand against that kind of firepower. General, Prophet Morden said sadly, do you know how many ships the Devourers had when they attacked Earth? How many? 10 million, the largest fleet ever assembled in galactic history. They had weapons that could crack planets, shields that could withstand supernovas, and technology that allowed them to move faster than light itself. The Prophet paused, letting that sink in. It didn't matter. The humans erased all of them in a single day. High Counselor Nexara was rapidly calculating political implications. Your Majesty, if word of this spreads throughout the Empire, it could cause panic. Subject worlds might rebel if they think we can't protect them. And if we attack Earth and get erased from existence, there won't be an Empire left to worry about, the Emperor replied grimly. So what do we do? General Krexter demanded. The Empire has never retreated from anyone. We've also never faced extinction before, the Emperor pointed out. Zethkar cleared his throat. Your Majesty, there's something else. Admiral Chen said something about humans being quick learners and having long memories. I think they've been studying every species that's attacked them. Learning from each encounter. Learning what? The Emperor asked. How to fight us more efficiently. How to erase us more completely. Each time someone attacks Earth, the humans get better at dealing with galactic civilizations. Prophet Morden nodded. The old stories say that the first species to threaten Earth took the humans several hours to deal with. By the time the Devourers attacked, it took only minutes. Each encounter teaches them something new about how to defend themselves. Your Majesty, High Counselor Nexara said carefully, perhaps we should consider the humans' offer. If we stay away from their territory, they leave us alone. That's not surrender, that's practical politics. It's cowardice. General Krextar snarled. The Empire does not show weakness. The Empire also doesn't commit suicide, the Emperor replied. And that's what attacking Earth would be. He began pacing in front of his throne, his mind working through the implications. If we attack, we risk the complete destruction of our civilization. If we back down, we risk looking weak to our subject worlds. If we ignore them, we risk another commander deciding to test their defenses. There is another option, Prophet Morden said quietly. What? We spread the word. Quietly, carefully, through diplomatic channels. We let every species in the galaxy know that Earth is off limits. Not because we're afraid, but because we're smart enough to recognize a superior force when we see it. You want us to warn other species away from Earth? The Emperor asked. I want us to make sure no one else is stupid enough to poke the sleeping monster, the Prophet replied. Because if someone else attacks Earth and gets erased, the humans might decide that the galaxy is too dangerous to leave alone. The implications of that statement sent chills through everyone in the throne room. What do you mean? Zethkar asked. Think about it, Morden explained. Right now, the humans are content to stay in their own system. They don't conquer, they don't expand, they don't interfere with galactic politics. But what happens if they decide that the only way to protect themselves is to eliminate every potential threat in the galaxy? The Emperor's face went pale. They could erase every civilization that might someday threaten them. And with their technology, that could be everyone. The Prophet concluded. General Krextar was finally beginning to understand the scope of what they were dealing with. You're saying we need to protect them from other species to protect ourselves. I'm saying we need to make sure that Earth remains a forbidden zone for everyone, Mordan replied. Because the alternative is the end of galactic civilization as we know it. Emperor Vaxthul returned to his throne and sat down heavily. Very well. Issue a secret directive to all Imperial forces. Earth and the Sol system are to be avoided at all costs. Any ship that approaches human space without authorization will be court-martialed. And the other galactic powers? High Counselor Nexara asked. We'll find ways to warn them. Quietly, diplomatically, we'll make sure everyone understands the risks. Your Majesty, Zethkar said. Admiral Chen mentioned that they hope never to use their full capabilities again. I think they don't want to hurt anyone. They just want to be left alone. Then that's exactly what we'll do, the Emperor declared. Earth is now a forbidden zone. May the stars help anyone foolish enough to ignore that order. But even as he spoke, the Emperor couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere in the galaxy, some other species was already making plans to test the humans' defenses. And if that happened, the consequences would be beyond imagination. Some species are too proud to learn from others' mistakes. They're about to discover why that's fatal. In the shadowy realm between dimensions, the Ascended Collective held council. They were beings of pure energy who had transcended physical form millions of years ago, and they viewed the rest of the galaxy with contempt and amusement. So, spoke the entity known as First Among Equals, its voice resonating across multiple realities. The primitive empire has been frightened by a species that has barely learned to leave its home world. The reports are intriguing, replied the Seeker of Truth. These humans apparently have some kind of reality manipulation technology. Impossible, declared the Wielder of Power. We have mastered the fundamental forces of existence itself. No primitive species could have developed anything that rivals our abilities. The Ascended Collective had good reason for their confidence. They had evolved beyond physical existence eons ago. They could manipulate matter and energy at will. They had observed the rise and fall of thousands of galactic civilizations. They were, by any measure, the most advanced species in the known universe. The Empire claims the humans erased one of their ships from existence. The Seeker of Truth reported. A clever trick. The Wielder of Power dismissed. Probably some kind of advanced teleportation technology combined with memory manipulation. The Empire's species are remarkably gullible. What about the reports of 17 other species being completely erased? Asked the Keeper of Memories. Galactic gossip and primitive superstition, First Among Equals replied. No species has the ability to truly erase another from existence. Even we have never attempted such a thing. Perhaps, suggested the Seeker of Truth, we should investigate these humans ourselves. If they truly have developed reality manipulation technology, it could be useful to study. The Wielder of Power's energy form pulsed with amusement. You want us to waste time studying primitives who have barely mastered faster-than-light travel? I want us to understand what frightened the Empire so badly that they've declared an entire star system off-limits, the Seeker of Truth replied. First Among Equals considered this. The collective had been observing galactic events for millennia, and they had never seen the Empire back down from anything. If these humans had somehow intimidated such a warlike species, it might indeed be worth investigating. Very well, First Among Equals decided. We will send a probe to observe this Earth, but only to satisfy our curiosity about primitive psychology. Shall I prepare one of our scout vessels? Asked the Keeper of Memories. No need, the Wielder of Power replied. I will go myself. It will be amusing to see these creatures who think they can manipulate reality. 3 days later, the Wielder of Power materialized in the space around Earth, its energy form invisible to most types of sensors. It had expected to find a primitive world with basic defenses, perhaps some kind of crude force field technology. Instead, it found something that made its ancient consciousness recoil in shock. The space around Earth wasn't just protected, it was fundamentally altered. Reality itself had been reshaped, twisted into configurations that should have been impossible. The planet existed in its own pocket of custom-made physics, where the normal rules of existence had been rewritten to favor its defenders. Fascinating, the Wielder of Power murmured to itself. They haven't just developed technology to manipulate reality, they've learned to restructure it entirely. As it moved closer to study the phenomenon, something impossible happened. A voice spoke directly into its consciousness, despite the fact that it existed as pure energy in a space between dimensions. You're trespassing. The Wielder of Power recoiled. Nothing should have been able to detect it, let alone communicate with it. Who dares speak to one of the Ascended? Someone who's dealt with your kind before, the voice replied. It was calm, patient, and absolutely terrifying in its confidence. My kind? Impossible. We are unique in the galaxy, are you? The voice asked. Let me guess. You transcended physical existence millions of years ago. You can manipulate matter and energy at will. You consider yourselves the most advanced species in the universe. The wielder of power felt something it hadn't experienced in eons. Surprise. How do you know this? Because you're not the first energy beings to visit our system, the voice explained. The Eternal Minds came here 60 years ago with exactly the same attitude. They were very confident about their superiority right up until we erased them from existence. The Eternal Minds? The wielder of power searched its vast memory banks. There was no record of any species by that name. I have never heard of them. Of course you haven't. They don't exist anymore. Along with the pure ones who visited us 40 years ago, and the transcendent masters who showed up 20 years ago, the entity felt its first stirring of genuine alarm. You're lying. No one can truly erase an ascended being from existence. Would you like a demonstration? The voice asked politely. Before the wielder of power could respond, something reached out and touched its consciousness, not with force or violence, but with a precision that was absolutely terrifying. For just a moment, the entity felt itself beginning to unravel at the fundamental level. Then, the sensation stopped. That was just a taste, the voice explained. I could have continued the process. In about 3 seconds, you would have ceased to exist on every level of reality. Your consciousness, your memories, your very essence would have been removed from the universe entirely. The wielder of power tried to retreat, but found itself held in place by forces it couldn't understand or counter. What are you? I'm Dr. Marcus Webb, Director of Transdimensional Defense, the voice replied. I'm human. Impossible. Humans are primitive biological creatures. That's what everyone thinks, Dr. Webb agreed. It's a useful misconception. Makes people underestimate us right up until the moment we erase them from reality. But you're communicating with me directly. You're holding an ascended being in place. That should be impossible for a primitive species. Should it? Dr. Webb asked. Tell me, in all your millions of years of existence, have you ever actually tried to understand the fundamental structure of reality? Or did you just learn to manipulate the parts that were convenient for you? The question struck the wielder of power like a physical blow. The truth was, the ascended collective had transcended physical existence by following pathways discovered by species that came before them. They had never truly innovated, never pushed the boundaries of what was possible. We are ascended beings, the entity protested weakly. We have mastered the forces of existence. You've mastered the forces of existence that your predecessors discovered, Dr. Webb corrected. But you never learned to think outside the patterns they established. Humans don't have that limitation. What do you mean? We started from scratch, Dr. Webb explained. When we first encountered hostile aliens, we had no preconceptions about what was possible or impossible. So when we needed to develop defenses that could stop any conceivable threat, we looked at the problem from completely fresh perspectives. The entity felt its understanding of the universe beginning to crumble. You developed all this in just a few decades. We had excellent motivation, Dr. Webb replied dryly. Nothing focuses the mind quite like the threat of extinction. And it turns out that when you approach reality manipulation without any preconceived notions, you can accomplish some very interesting things, such as rewriting the basic laws of physics in localized areas, such as creating pockets of custom reality where different rules apply, such as reaching into higher dimensions and making adjustments to the fundamental code that underlies existence itself. The wielder of power's energy form was beginning to destabilize from sheer shock. That's beyond even theoretical possibility. Is it? Dr. Webb asked. You're experiencing it right now. I'm holding you in place using forces that shouldn't exist, communicating with you through methods that violate everything you think you know about consciousness and reality. But how? Because we learned something that your species never figured out, Dr. Webb explained. Reality isn't fixed. It's not set in stone. It's more like software. And if you understand the underlying code well enough, you can rewrite it. The entity tried once more to escape, pouring all of its vast power into breaking free. The attempt failed completely. "Please don't struggle," Dr. Webb said gently. "I really don't want to hurt you. I just want you to understand the situation you're in." "What situation?" "You came here to study us," Dr. Webb said. "To see if we really have the abilities that scared the Empire so badly. Well, now you know. The question is, what are you going to do with that knowledge?" The wielder of power's consciousness was reeling. Everything it had believed about the nature of existence, about the supremacy of ascended beings, about the limitations of primitive species, all of it was crumbling. I will return to the collective," the entity managed to say. "I will report what I have learned. Will you?" Dr. Webb asked. "Or will you try to convince them that humans need to be eliminated before we become an even greater threat?" The question hung in the space between dimensions like a sword over the entity's head. "Because that's what the Eternal Minds tried to do," Dr. Webb continued. "They went back to their realm and gathered every ascended being they could find. They assembled a force of pure consciousness that could have reshaped entire galaxies. What happened to them? They tried to attack Earth with everything they had," Dr. Webb replied. "All at once, from multiple dimensions simultaneously, using powers that transcended normal reality." The wielder of power waited, dreading the answer. "It took us 4 minutes to erase their entire species from existence," Dr. Webb said quietly. "Not just their physical forms, not just their consciousness, but every trace they had ever left on reality itself. We removed them so completely that the universe retroactively adjusted to a state where they had never existed." The entity felt its energy form beginning to collapse from pure terror. 4 minutes? But they were ascended beings. They had powers beyond physical comprehension. So did the pure ones, Dr. Webb said. They lasted 3 minutes. The Transcendent Masters made it to 5 minutes, but only because they tried to hide in pocket dimensions we hadn't discovered yet. You're saying humans can destroy any species, no matter how advanced? "I'm saying humans can defend themselves against any threat," Dr. Webb corrected. "We don't go looking for fights. We don't conquer other worlds. We don't impose our will on other species. But when someone threatens us," he paused, and the wielder of power could feel the weight of absolute certainty behind his words. "When someone threatens us, we remove the threat. Permanently, completely. And we make sure it can never threaten anyone again. But surely there must be limits to your power. Are you volunteering to test those limits?" Dr. Webb asked politely. The question sent waves of terror through the entity's consciousness. No, I don't understand how this is possible." "That's because you're thinking about this the wrong way," Dr. Webb explained. "You see reality as something to be manipulated. We see it as something to be understood. You work within existing systems. We create new ones. But the energy requirements alone are irrelevant when you can tap directly into the quantum foam that underlies all existence," Dr. Webb finished. "When you understand that matter and energy are just different expressions of information, and when you can manipulate information at its most basic level, conventional limitations stop applying." The wielder of power felt its worldview completely shatter. "You're saying humans have learned to manipulate the fundamental information structure of reality itself?" "Among other things," Dr. Webb confirmed, "we've also learned to create new dimensions, establish custom physics in localized areas, and reach backward through time to make adjustments to causality itself." "Causality manipulation?" The entity's voice was barely a whisper. "But that's the ultimate expression of power over existence. It's also very useful for making sure aggressive species never existed in the first place," Dr. Webb pointed out. "Much cleaner than conventional warfare. No messy battles, no collateral damage, no refugees. They just weren't." The wielder of power finally understood the true scope of what it was facing. Humans hadn't just developed advanced technology. They had learned to rewrite the basic rules of existence itself. "What do you want from me?" the entity asked. "I want you to go back to your collective and deliver a message," Dr. Webb replied. "The same message we've given to every advanced species that's discovered us." "What message?" "Earth is off limits. Humans are not to be threatened, attacked, or interfered with in any way. Any species that violates this policy will be removed from existence so completely that the universe will forget they ever lived. And if we refuse? Then you'll join the 17 other galactic powers that made the same choice, Dr. Webb said simply. The universe is a big place. There's room for everyone who's willing to coexist peacefully, but there's no room for anyone who thinks they can threaten humanity. The wielder of power felt the restraints holding it begin to release. You're letting me go? I'm giving you a chance to make the smart choice, Dr. Webb corrected. The same chance we gave all the others. Most of them made the wrong decision. And if my collective decides to test your defenses? Then there will be one less ascended species in the galaxy, Dr. Webb replied. And frankly, given how long you've existed without making any real progress in understanding reality, the universe probably won't miss you much. The entity found itself free to move again. It began to retreat toward the edge of the solar system, but Dr. Webb's voice followed it. Oh, and one more thing, the human called out. If you're thinking of warning other species about our capabilities, don't bother. We've been having this same conversation with advanced civilizations for decades. Word gets around. What do you mean? I mean every major power in the galaxy already knows about us, Dr. Webb explained. They all know what happens to species that threaten Earth. The smart ones stay away. The arrogant ones get erased. It's a very effective system. The wielder of power fled back to its home dimension, its consciousness burning with humiliation and terror. But as it traveled through the spaces between realities, it began to understand something else. Dr. Webb had been right. Word had gotten around. Throughout the galaxy, there were whispered warnings about the blue world that couldn't be conquered. Stories told in the deepest archives of the most ancient civilizations. Tales of species that had tried to claim Earth and simply vanished from existence. Humanity had become the galaxy's ultimate deterrent. The final answer to the question of what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object. The unstoppable force gets erased from reality. What happens when humanity faces a threat that can't be erased from existence? The final battle for Earth's survival begins now. In the depths of space, in a region where reality itself grew thin and unstable, something ancient stirred. It had no name, for it existed before language. It had no form, for it existed before matter. It was the void that hungers, the primordial force that had existed since the first moments after the universe began. For billions of years, it had slumbered in the spaces between galaxies, feeding on dying stars and the entropy of collapsing civilizations. But now something had awakened it. Reports of a species that could manipulate reality itself, that could erase other beings from existence. Such power was interesting. The void that hungers began to move toward the Milky Way galaxy, drawn by the prospect of consuming something truly unique. It had devoured countless civilizations over the eons, but none had possessed the ability to rewrite reality itself. As it approached, space itself began to warp and decay around it. Stars aged millions of years in seconds. Planets crumbled to dust. The very fabric of existence began to fray. On Earth, alarms began sounding in every defense facility simultaneously. Dr. Marcus Webb rushed into the emergency command center deep beneath NORAD, where technicians were frantically working at stations displaying readings that seemed impossible. "What's our status?" he demanded. "Sir," called out Dr. Sarah Kim, the lead sensor technician, "we're detecting a massive disturbance approaching from outside the galaxy. It's unlike anything we've encountered before." "Define unlike anything," Webb ordered. "It's not matter. It's not energy. It's not even antimatter," Kim explained, her voice shaking. It's like existence itself is being consumed as this thing moves toward us." Webb studied the readings, his face growing pale. "How long until it reaches our solar system?" "At its current speed, approximately 6 hours, reported Lieutenant Commander Jackson from the tactical station. "But sir, it's accelerating, and everything in its path is just disappearing." "Disappearing how?" "Not being destroyed, not being converted to energy," Jackson clarified. "Just ceasing to exist. Stars, planets, even the space between them. It's like reality is being eaten, Webb activated the emergency communication system. This is Dr. Webb to all defense stations. We have a code black situation. All personnel to battle stations immediately. Within minutes, every human defense installation in the solar system was online and coordinating. The Terran defense grid powered up, reality manipulation fields came online, and dimensional barriers activated around Earth. "Sir," Dr. Kim called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the approaching entity. Put it through." A voice filled the command center, but it wasn't really a voice. It was the sound of reality itself being devoured, translated into something human minds could barely comprehend. Small manipulators of existence. I have come to consume your reality-shaping abilities. Your power will become part of the endless hunger. Webb grabbed the microphone. "This is Dr. Marcus Webb, Director of Terran Defense. You are approaching protected space. Turn back now. Protected?" The entity's laughter was like the sound of universes dying. "Nothing can protect against the void that hungers. I have consumed gods and devoured the dreams of ascended beings. Your reality manipulation is amusing, but I am beyond such concerns. We've defeated 17 different galactic civilizations," Webb warned. "Each one thought they were invincible." "Those were children playing with toys," the void replied. "I am entropy itself. I am the darkness between thoughts. I cannot be erased because I am the force that does the erasing." Dr. Kim looked up from her sensors, terror in her eyes. "Sir, it's not lying. This thing, it's a fundamental force of the universe. It's not a species or a civilization. It's like trying to fight gravity or thermodynamics." Webb felt cold sweat running down his back. Everything they'd faced before had been, ultimately, just another form of matter and energy. But this was something else entirely. Something that existed on a level deeper than reality manipulation. "All defense systems, full activation," he ordered. "Prepare for reality restructuring on a solar system scale." The space around Earth erupted into impossible configurations as humanity's most advanced defenses came online. Reality itself twisted and reformed, creating barriers that existed in dimensions the void that hungers couldn't even perceive. For a moment, the entity's approach slowed. "Clever," it admitted. "You have learned to hide parts of yourselves in folded space. But space itself is something I consume. Watch." The barriers began to dissolve. Not broken or shattered, but simply ceasing to exist as the void consumed the very concepts they were built upon. "Sir," Lieutenant Jackson called out, "all outer defenses are failing. It's eating the dimensional barriers themselves." Webb's mind raced. Every weapon they'd ever developed, every defense they'd ever created, was based on manipulating reality. But what did you do when faced with something that consumed reality itself? "Dr. Webb," came Admiral Chen's voice over the comm, "I'm reading massive casualties from the outer system. Mars Defense Station just stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized. It's like it was never built." "Time to impact?" Webb asked. 4 hours and falling fast," Jackson reported. Webb closed his eyes, thinking furiously. Then suddenly his eyes snapped open. "Kim! Bring up the archives from our first contact with hostile aliens. I want to see the original Devourer encounter, sir. But that was 80 years ago, and we erased the Devourers completely." "That's exactly what I want to see," Webb said. "How did we first learn to erase something from existence?" Dr. Kim's fingers flew over her console, bringing up files that hadn't been accessed in decades. "Here, sir, the original research notes from the Reality Manipulation Project." Webb scanned the data, his eyes moving faster and faster. "There. Look at this, Dr. Elizabeth Santos, the lead researcher. She wrote, 'The key insight is that existence itself is just information. Change the information. Change what exists.'" "I don't understand, sir," Jackson said. "We've been thinking about this wrong," Webb explained, excitement building in his voice. "We've been treating the void like something that exists, something that can be fought or defeated. But what if it's not something that exists? What if it's the absence of existence, and sir?" Dr. Kim asked. "Think about it," Webb continued. "It consumes reality. It devours existence itself. But what does that make it? It's not a thing, it's the absence of things. It's not matter or energy. It's the void where matter and energy should be. Lieutenant Jackson was beginning to understand. You're saying it's like a hole in reality? Exactly, Webb said. And what do you do with a hole? You fill it? Dr. Kim suggested. You fill it, Webb confirmed. He turned to the communication system. All stations, all defense grids, all reality manipulation devices. I want every human installation in the galaxy to coordinate for one massive operation. What kind of operation, sir? Admiral Chen asked. We're going to give the void that hungers exactly what it wants, Webb replied. We're going to feed it, sir. Jackson protested. That sounds like suicide, Webb agreed. Unless you understand what we're actually going to feed it. He turned to address all of humanity's defenders simultaneously. Everyone listen carefully. The void consumes existence, reality, information. It's a hole in the universe that devours everything around it. But what happens when you feed a hole so much that it can't contain what it's trying to consume? The realization spread through the communication network like wildfire. It fills up, Admiral Chen whispered. The absence becomes a presence. Exactly, Webb confirmed. We're going to create so much existence, so much reality, so much pure information that even the void that hungers can't consume it all. We're going to force it to become something instead of nothing. But, sir, Dr. Kim asked, won't that require more power than humanity has ever generated? No, Webb said with a grim smile. It'll require more power than humanity has ever generated before. But there's a difference between before and now. He activated the master control system that connected every human installation in the galaxy. All stations prepare for Operation Existence. We're going to create reality faster than the void can consume it. Across human space, massive machines that had never been used at full capacity suddenly roared to life. Reality generators that could create new dimensions began working in perfect synchronization. Matter compilers that could turn pure energy into substance started producing existence itself on an industrial scale. And at the center of it all, on Earth itself, humanity activated its most closely guarded secret, the Genesis engine, a device that could create not just matter and energy, but the fundamental information patterns that underlay all existence. The void that hungers sensed what was happening and increased its speed, racing to reach Earth before the humans could complete their desperate gambit. It will not work. It roared across dimensions. I am the end of all things. I am the final darkness. Maybe, Webb replied calmly, but you're about to find out what happens when the final darkness meets infinite light. The space between the void and Earth suddenly exploded with new reality. Not just matter and energy, but entire universes of pure existence, dimensions full of information, realms of crystallized thought and solidified dreams. The void tried to consume it all, but for the first time in billions of years, it couldn't keep up. The humans were creating existence faster than entropy could destroy it. Impossible. The entity howled as it found itself surrounded by more reality than it had ever encountered. I am the consumer. I am the end. You were the consumer, Webb corrected. But now you're going to be something else entirely. The torrent of new existence continued to pour into the space around the void. Galaxies worth of matter, dimensions full of energy, and something even more fundamental, pure possibility itself. The raw potential from which all existence emerged. The void that hungers began to change. It couldn't help itself. Faced with more existence than it could possibly consume, it began to absorb it, to become it. The absence of everything slowly transformed into the presence of something. What? What is happening to me? The entity asked, and for the first time its voice carried confusion rather than confidence. You're becoming real, Webb explained. For billions of years you've been the hole where existence should be. But we filled that hole. We've given you substance, form, actual existence instead of just the absence of it. The transformation accelerated. The void that hungers, the primordial force of entropy and decay, found itself becoming something it had never been before. A living being with its own existence to protect. I can feel, the entity whispered in wonder. I can think thoughts that are not about consumption. I can imagine things that are not about ending. Congratulations, Webb said gently. You've just learned what it means to exist, rather than simply consume existence. The entity that had once been the void that hungers looked around with newly formed senses, seeing the universe not as something to devour but as something to explore and understand. The stars, it said softly. They're beautiful. I never noticed before. That's because you were only seeing them as food, Webb pointed out. Now you can see them as they actually are. But what am I now? The entity asked. If I'm not the void that hungers, what have I become? Webb smiled. You're something new. Something that's never existed before. A being born from the transformation of entropy itself into creative force. The entity considered this. I need a name. What would you like to be called? After a long moment, the being replied, Hope. I think I would like to be called Hope. Admiral Chen's voice came over the comm, filled with disbelief. Dr. Webb, are you telling me we just turned the ultimate force of destruction into hope? That's exactly what we did, Webb confirmed. And I think that might be the most human thing we've ever accomplished. Hope, the entity that had once been the void that hungers, began to explore its new existence with wonder. Dr. Webb, may I ask you something? Of course. Why did you save me instead of trying to destroy me? Webb thought about that for a moment, because that's what humans do. When we encounter something we don't understand, we try to understand it. When we meet something hostile, we try to find a way to make peace with it. And when we face something that seems like an enemy, we try to turn it into a friend. Even when that something has consumed entire galaxies, everyone deserves a chance to become something better than what they were, Webb replied. That includes primordial forces of entropy. Hope's newfound consciousness expanded, touching the minds of humans across the galaxy. For the first time, it understood what it had been destroying all those eons. Not just matter and energy, but dreams, hopes, love, creativity, and the infinite potential of thinking beings. I have much to make amends for, Hope said quietly. The past is the past, Webb replied. What matters now is what you choose to do with your new existence. Hope considered this, then made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. I choose to create instead of consume. I choose to build instead of destroy. I choose to help instead of harm. And with that declaration, Hope began to work. Across the galaxy, in the spaces where its former self had devoured stars and planets, new worlds began to form. Not just any worlds, but perfect worlds designed for the beings who would someday inhabit them. The entity that had once been the ultimate destroyer became the ultimate creator. Dr. Webb, Hope said as its work continued, I understand now why every species that threatened humanity was defeated. It wasn't because of your weapons or your technology. What was it then? It was because you never forgot that your enemies might someday become your friends, Hope replied. You always left room for redemption even in the face of annihilation, Webb nodded. That's what makes us human. And across the galaxy, every species that had ever heard the warnings about Earth came to understand a new truth. Humanity didn't just defend itself by erasing threats from existence. They defended themselves by transforming threats into hope. The blue world that had once been forbidden became the galaxy's symbol of infinite possibility. And the species that could rewrite reality itself became known not as destroyers, but as the people who could turn even the darkest force in the universe into a beacon of light. Earth's final decree had been proven once and for all. In Terran territory, no one was beyond redemption, not even entropy itself. The end. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story of humanity's ultimate test, please like and subscribe for more amazing HFY Sci-Fi adventures. What did you think of Hope's transformation? Let me know in the comments below.